Welcome back to the Wrong Advice Podcast. I'm your host, John Pachuto, and I'm very excited today to have a panel discussion with three of my favorite artists on planet Earth, well, at least in the New York and New Jersey area. Today's discussion is going to be a all-encompassing sort of platform articulation of what is art in 2023. On the panel today, I have Ben Rizzo, a fine artist based out of New Jersey, Calina Hiriza, who is a creative director and fine artist as well, and Ciara Gaglio, who is a artist based out of New York. Guys, how's everybody doing today?
Hey,
Great.
good. Glad to be here. Thanks for
Awesome.
having us.
So I thought, in sort of a tongue-in-cheek manner, the way that we could get started on this sort of discussion is by having ChatGPT, a very popular AI-based program on the internet, generate 10 questions for us about art and digital art in 2023. So the first question that ChatGPT made for us was, "What is your definition of art in 2023?" And Ben, I'd like to start with you.
I used to be a teacher, and this was the question that would get kids eventually saying everything and anything. And a lot of people think it is just whatever it is. It's mostly intent, I think, is what art is. I think when you do it as a job and a serious hobby, it is a little more nuanced as like what is art. It's more than just intent, because then you get into meaning and technique. But from a general picture, I think it really is what you're hoping to get out of it. And you could take a garbage can and put it in a gallery, and it's no longer trash, but now it's now in a different context, so now it becomes art. Duchamp took the urinal and he flipped it upside down. It's like kind of that thing, which is modernism, and that was about 100 years ago. Fast forward now, we have different means and different vehicles, but it's loosely that. I could be an elitist at times, but I'll just leave it at that for now, so people don't hate me so quickly. Let's wait till the seventh question before I become, public enemy one on this call. So
Ciara, what do you think art is in the definition of in 2023?
It's a tough one to follow, but I think for me personally, art is just creative expression of my emotions and um, everything that I go through every single day. Like my art changes, so I feel like it's just a representation of the person that is creating in whatever means that they create. I know that a lot of people call themselves artists these days, but I think that deep down, like everybody can be an artist if they hone in on what it is that brings them joy and pleasure to make, whether it's music, poetry, physical, visual art, or food. I mean, there's so many different ways to be an artist. So I will just go with the creative expression of ourselves.
I love that. Kalina, what do you think?
So I think this guy with this question is trying to get at, what is happening in 2023, which is this influx of AI and technology and, artists and a lot of people incorporating that in their work. Is art in 2023 different than art was in 18 something? Yes. If you think about the Renaissance, where art was it was decorative, but it was meant to emulate real life. Then we ended up having photography, right? So we had no need of that. And some people actually make that analogy and connection that AI for art is what photography was for painting before, which is interesting.
Hmm.
Um, I think rather it's 2023 or 1000 BC or whatever, um, art or artistic expression comes from a complex internal process, right? Whether it's a struggle, whether it's happiness. And that is something, in my opinion, that cannot be replaced by technology. It can be enhanced through technology, but it's certainly something very human. So art will always be a very sort of human thing.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting distinction because, in the proliferation of AI art and NFTs and sort of the influx of sort of decreasing the barrier for entry to be an artist, it's framing the question of what is art in this day and age to be a sort of larger discussion. Which I think what makes the second question that ChatGPT came up for us for even more interesting, and that is, what are the main differences between physical and digital art in terms of creation, process, and presentation? Now, Ben, I've had the benefit of talking to you a few times about your art, and how your process of creating has sort of evolved over time. So, what do you think that process is like for you versus someone who's a digital artist, and what that sort of creation process feels like and looks like?
Um, well, I often start with a digital sketch if that says anything about the process as a quick means to get out ideas and it's easy to edit. But ultimately, it's just the physicality. I think Kalina talked about that in her first answer, is like the physical, tactile energy behind it. Um, I know Kalina and I, we do works that are not the same, but we kind of experiment in a similar way. I think our principles are interestingly aligned, where it's all about the energy and transferring that into the art, in which a pixelated image doesn't really translate on a screen. It's kind of like online dating, where you see someone online and it's just a flat, shallow depiction of them. Where if I see them out, I see them at a restaurant, a bar, wherever, it's so much more, visceral for me to be into that person. I think art's the same way. Um, I think they both have their pros and cons, and one's not better than the other per se. I do like the physical art because that's my training and that's what I do for work. So I'm obviously a little bit, but I think you need to do both. I think we're in the day and age where one is not without the other, and in order to evolve and not let AI take over, we need to be able to be forward thinking and say what's the best case scenario, and then my tool belt has all the tools, and I deploy them as needed per assignment or per project, etc.
Yeah, no, I get that. Ciara, as a digital artist yourself, what is your creation process like from the ideation phase to the implementation and creation phase? How does that sort of differ then from, say, Ben's or Kalina's, who are like physically creating with Canvas or etc.?
Yeah. So actually, I started off being, I guess you could call it a traditional artist. I used to paint and draw my whole life, and I absolutely love it. And to this day, I still do that. Um, and I also make music and I DJ. So I feel like I make art in a lot of different ways. But for me personally, when it comes to digital art, I just personally really like the process of it. I like having an idea and then having to make it, but not traditionally. Like if someone were to say, draw a duck, okay, I'll draw a duck. But for me personally, like I like the challenge that is using like digital technology to make this duck and make it move or add all of these different flavors to it that maybe like my skill level as a traditional artist isn't as good as I would like it to be. So with the addition of technology, I feel like it's really helped me just make some things that I wouldn't be able to make with my own hands. And it's also like the process of learning a new, I guess, application. I really enjoy. I self-taught for, learning animation and After Effects. And that was like one of the hardest things to learn for me was all the different expressions and things that you can do with that program. So I think it's just like constantly challenging myself is what I really like. And that's kind of like with this whole AI wave, it's that's also something I've wanted to learn, just kind of like to learn how to do everything. And maybe that's just in my personality. Um, but yeah, I hope that was a good
Yeah.
answer.
No, absolutely. Kalina, what are your thought processes on that?
I actually very much so enjoy going last because there's a lot of stuff that's being unpacked here previously. So it helps me out a little bit. So kudos, Ben, for going first. Um, it's very interesting. And since you're looking for spicy things, Ben took it to online dating, and I was starting to think, okay, how do you make out? Yeah, of course you want a person in flesh and bone, because how are you going to make up with a picture? I mean, make out. And then I thought, well, people did actually for a long time make out with pictures. So anyway, I was going there for a second. Um, but in terms of the physical aspect of art and the digital aspect of art, I think a lot has to do with time. And Ciara, you were talking about that. I think you're getting to that. It's much faster. You can be rewarded with a result much faster through digital art, and you can explore different things. Exactly. Like if you're going to draw that duck in 10 different ways, how long will it take you? Or if you use AI, how long will it take you, right? And of course, also the breadth of information that is feeding into this AI program is so much huger than probably what one person can come up with. So I think there's probably that sort of appeal when it comes to it, certainly. um, the process, I feel, I'm probably biased on this, but I feel the digital process of things, not that it's lesser, but it's truncated
Hmm.
in a sense. And I see it more, I was thinking about this last night. I see the use of technology in certain ways, like Midjourney, Dolly, and that those sort of things, is a truncated process that's actually more art direction than creation, right? Because I do that at work also every day. I art direct people. I look at things and I say, bring a little bit of this, bring a little bit of that. But the actual process that those particular people are going through to bring me those things, to look at those things, that is creation. And I think, one lacks speed perhaps in certain instances, and the other one lacks a little bit that sort of human involvement, right? That is unique and is different for each and every one of us.
Yeah, I think I'm sort of glad that you brought up the Midjourney and Dolly. I've sort of dabbled with both of the processes for AI art creation because I find it a very interesting process. I think when as a person who has absolutely zero skill when it comes to creating digital art, whether it's in Procreate or Illustrator or physical art, whether it's drawing stick figures on paper, I have zero ability whatsoever. So the idea that there's now this avenue for me that I can come up with a concept in my mind and a program can create it for me is very cool. That being said, when I look at these things that I have created, I don't feel like an artist. I don't feel that me coming up with an idea in my head, typing it into a AI generative platform makes me an artist. I think I agree with what you said, Kalina. It makes me a creative director. It makes me an idea person, but by no means does that make me an artist. And I think what it is doing is it's making people like me who have no skills whatsoever have I now have an avenue to create, right? Which is cool, but it would be very disingenuous for me to be like I am now an artist because a computer program has created an idea that I have and made it into the real world. Um, I think it if anything, it sort of reiterates the true power that is for artists, whether they are digital creating artists in software programs like Illustrator, etc., or physical artists like yourselves who are creating real physical works of art. I find it that to be a very big distinction. Um, But Ben, how do you
I just
see?
want to say real quick.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I just want to say because I like Calina. You said truncated, and I just looked it up real quick just to make sure I was understanding. And I think that's a really fascinating point on the duration of the impact of something and how digital art. Like I was thinking in like 2050, in the MoMA, are we going to walk into a completely digital wall with completely interactive screens? And is that going to be the future? Or do people always appreciate that which is finite and scarce? Like we go into the Met and we see, a ceramic thing made from antiquity, and we still have that thing and we still appreciate that thing. That was a good point. I've never thought that the lasting impact of the physical is so much greater because we are human and we do have our brains are wired for that connection. And I think the actual tangible thing is what gives us that, where the digital we feel maybe shallow, which is another conversation to
Mhm.
have. And I'll go to therapy for that, John. Don't worry. I know you're a big advocate for BetterHelp or whatever that ad is, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's all I wanted to say.
No, I'm with you. I agree. I think it's funny because the next question from ChatGPT is, how do you see digital art impacting the traditional art world? In my opinion, it has put greater value on the traditional art world. You see rising, auction prices, rising art prices for famous artists and first year artists as well. Like I think it's created that sort of distinction between the physical and the digital world, which, I'm curious what you think, Sarah, because you and I met through the NFT space, through the digital space. I spent a lot of time creating NFTs, and I have recently sort of fallen out of love with the process. I've sort of fallen out of love with the community. My feelings on the world is I want everyone to be as successful creating art as possible, whether it's digital or physical. But for me, what I create from a photography perspective happens in real life. And I just started feeling this disconnect between this digital image that I'm selling and the fact that it is a physical activity. And I just sort of fell out of love with the process. But what are your thoughts on sort of the role digital art is going to play in the traditional art world?
So it's funny that you mention how you're feeling because I literally just spoke about this in a space with a photographer friend of mine yesterday that he's like, I'm feeling so bad about the space. I'm ready to just call it quits. Like I have no drive to go out and shoot and share it, like all these emotions. And I think that this is a common feeling right now between a lot of people, and I think it does have something to do with the big wave of AI that's come in because some people are creating AI that looks so realistic, like to a photograph. Like I can feel the frustration of photographers saying, like, well, if you can make this in AI, like, why am I going out and actually finding this and shooting it? And as a photographer myself, like and a user of AI, I'm kind of stuck in this weird like I don't know, purgatory of like I enjoy both things, but I can see how it is having an impact. The only thing that I told him about this feeling was that AI is not going away, whether it's in the NFT space or in life. It's only going to get bigger, it's only to get smarter, and it's only going to take over more things. I mean, we're using Chat GPT to ask us questions right now. Like that is not going to change. But what I do feel is that I think that traditional art, photography, things like that are going to be looked at so much more like precious because AI is going to just become so accessible to everyone. So I just think that when you take a photo, okay, your signature is on that photo. And that's something that I think people will really they will want to have that. It's hard to put it into words because I forgot exactly what I said to him, but um, photographers, especially, just saying to you, you have a certain signature on your photos. And that is something that AI can't reproduce because that's literally coming from you, like your eye, your mind. And I think that you kind of just have to tune it out if that's making you struggle in your creative journey. Like, um, mute people, mute things that bring you down, or just keep doing photography and not in the NFT space. Because I hate to say it, but I really do think the NFT space is going to just become more and more digitized, and it's just facts of like how it's been moving.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I agree completely with everything that you just said. I think my issue and dilemma with the space ultimately is from the negative actors in it. And I think anytime you have like an influx of capital into any space, there are going to be nefarious, individuals in it. To me, I didn't lose any money in any scams or anything like that, but I am a full-time photographer. I love creating photographs. I will do that for the rest of my life. The manner in which I profit off of that will be more client oriented and less art oriented and selling of prints and things like that. And I'm okay with that. I've recently fallen way, way, way too deep in love with Polaroid film, and I'm going to be broke in no time. But it's another aspect of photography that exists physically, and there is the physical Polaroid that exists after the shoot. And to me, it's the more things get digitized, the more things are AI proliferated, the more I am reaching back towards, a physical example of what I do and what exists. Because to me, it just is the world that we live in. And, until we're wearing goggles and Ready Player Oneing all over the place, that's just sort of how I feel. Um, I love this question a lot because being that this is an AI platform asking this, I think it's kind of interesting. But it says, can you discuss the challenges and limitations you face as a physical artist in the current digital age? Obviously, this is a little bit more geared towards Ben and Calina, but Ben, I'd like to start with you.
Um, I think all these problems and all these things are not new. They're just recycled as ideas are. So you look at things like imposter syndrome and lack of motivation and a competition, right? Whatever depression or whatever issues we have. I think these issues are things that will always plague us. Um, I don't really feel competitive per se because I try to stay abundant in like what's available to me. Um,
Like, do you
but
ever
yeah, I
feel
guess
like, no, sorry to interrupt you, do you ever feel like your success as as an artist, as you sell however many pieces of artwork per year, do you ever feel as if your sales numbers or creation requests or commissions are fluctuating at all due to people being like, hey, instead of buying this piece of art from you, I'm gonna go buy a Bored Ape, something like that? You know what I mean? Like, have you experienced anything like that to date?
no, no, because my clients are not there. They're more like the people that I sell to most often are not buying NFTs. That's
Hmm.
not to say that the casual user might be on the fence. And I think the print market and like the reproduction, that's more of what I'm competing with because I had a client this week. They want a painting for their bedroom. And like I quoted them and they're like, yeah, I mean, it's a little expensive. And, I want to tell them this is one of a kind. You're asking for a painting. If you want to wake up to this and go to bed and feel good about this, it's different than just buying a reproduction. So um, it's really just goes back to my value and my confidence. And I think this whole thing is just like it's eliminating all the phony users and all the people that are just jumping on the bandwagon. And now we're entering NFT winter or the digital age AI winter, where the real players are going to last and like 90% of people are just going to be swept away. And, it's a time to rise up. And if you could survive this, I think it's a good indicator of the future for the wave. But I don't know if I answered the question.
You
I
did.
mean,
I like that
I don't
sentiment a
know. I
lot.
don't. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Kalina, what are your feelings on that?
Oh, so many feelings, but I'll start with the positive ones. I think the world is big enough to find our own niche, right? Regardless of what we like. You know, you want to raise chickens, you know, in a pen somewhere, you can do that. You want to go out to a fancy bar every night, you can also do that. So, I mean, it's up to you to put in the work that takes you there, but you can do it. So, two things. A lot of times, some of the flags that are being raised, like proper flags, what you said before, you know, how you're falling out of love and, you know, the NFTs are not working for you. That's the right way to go about it. I tried it. It wasn't for me. Good luck, guys, right? But the people who are very intense when it comes to really hating something or loving something, it's usually it comes out from a personal place of insecurity or unhappiness with what's going on, and then you're looking to blame things for what is happening to you. um like Ben said, if you're an artist that okay, if you're an artist who does physical work and you have a clientele base, you know, that's for you. Those are the people who are interested in it. Doesn't mean that out of those, I don't know, 100 people, 10 of those will go and fall in love with NFTs and for a period of time just buy NFTs and not buy your art. Yes, but that is life and that's okay, you know. Um, when it comes to technology, though, and I was reading a little bit about this, there's a couple of things. AI and tech like that is so unregulated right now, and you're kind of getting to that as well. Um, that a lot of weird things are happening. So, you know, when you think about all the information that goes into that algorithm, and that's work from Rembrandt and Picasso and whatever, we're talking about art. Um, and me and you and Ben, right? Like maybe somehow the algorithm found us and used us for something. Um, and then somebody takes that information, creates some sort of a robot that now spits out pieces of art that is digital. um, you know, who gets the money, who gets the credit, you know? So that's, and I know there's a bunch of artists who are starting like class action against some of this stuff. Also, you know, museum curators and people like that, the museum directors, you know, they do include those types of art. There was like, I think it was Vitra Museum, maybe somewhere next to Basel, and they had a Hello Robot, and they had this robot that was drawing, and you didn't know exactly how she was going. She was drawing portraits based on the eyes were cameras, blah blah blah. But even that person who brought that robot in said, you know, real art is not going away, because we've heard that about a lot of stuff. We've heard that, oh, now there's photography, you're not gonna have realistic art. No, there's an audience for that. You have, I don't know what example to give, but you know, print is going away. There's not going to be any print. I mean, I've been hearing that for like 20 years. It's still here. Certainly 200 years from now, maybe things will be different, but I feel like things will really change if the way we need to live in the world will change. If there's bigger problems, like you don't have water, you don't have air, you don't have, you know, land and food and that sort of, that's when things will really start to shift. Other than that, I think there's something for everyone.
If
Yeah.
I could just add to
Go
that
ahead.
really quick.
Yeah.
Um, it's funny because when I joined the NFT space in 2021, there was essentially like no photography NFTs. It was all digital art. And everyone was kind of making like the same things, like, but it was all digitized. Like, and then the photography boom happened. And then that was just shot up. And now it's kind of like shifting to AI. So I think like when you're talking specifically about the NFT space, I think it goes through like phases. And you know, I think physical art has always been in the mix, but who knows, maybe all of like this animosity towards AI could boost like a huge physical art movement. You
Mhm.
know, it's interesting because it does change, and I've seen it like change from being inside of it. So
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, especially because so like uh, from my personal journey in the NFT space, like I was successful. I sold a bunch of NFTs and I was like very happy with with the process. The thing that I tried to do different than a lot of the other photographers in the space is I wanted to include, like I shoot a lot of film, so I wanted to include the sale of the physical negative with the NFT. So it was sort of marrying the idea of you are the digital token owner of this photograph, but you also own all of the commercial rights to this image basically by owning the 35 millimeter or 120 negative. Um, didn't really sell any of those. I was obviously asking a lot of money because it was me relinquishing all the rights to something that I created. But I had a lot of success in the space, and I enjoyed it greatly. I think what it did was reaffirmed my love for physical prints and shooting film, and for that I'll be super grateful for always. And I'm all the great people that I met along the way as well. Plenty of people I've had on my podcast, you know, you that I'm having on this panel discussion. It's opened up my eyes to a million different things in the art space, which I think is wonderful. I just my disconnect as a consumer from a, you know, I consume art, right? Like I buy art, but I have a problem with the AI generated stuff because I feel like Kalina mentioned, it is trolling the internet and thousands and millions of artists that exist over history and compiling images that are a little bit of everybody. And it, you know, what's that saying? I'm sure one of you know, like steal like an artist, or like, you know, the most sincere form of flattery is stealing, or whatever it is. But at the same time, I don't know that that necessarily makes you like an artist. And it's an interesting conundrum that I feel in the space, and I think it's what makes it sort of so polarizing. um but one of the interesting questions that ChatGPT had, and I wanted to ask you this with Ciara, was give me can you discuss sort of the impact that the internet and social media has had on the art world, and you specifically. I'm curious because obviously so much of what we all do as photographers, as artists, is predicated on sharing our work on social media platforms, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, etc. But how has the sort of social landscape impacted your work specifically?
Um, yeah, that's a loaded question. So I've been a graphic designer for like 12 years, and I never really used to share my work on social media because it's client based. You know, someone wants a logo, I'm not gonna post it on my Instagram. It's for them, and that's their brand. And so I feel like for years I was just kind of creating, but not really sharing. You know, on my portfolio, of course, I would share it, but not really sharing it to like the masses. And um, it wasn't until, you know, a few years ago when I did get into NFTs and started creating more stuff for myself rather than just client based work. I started sharing a lot of it. And at first, it was like, you know, big confidence boost to me. But now I feel as though it's so saturated that it can have a toll on your mental health for sure. Especially Twitter, you know, like you'll just scroll and you're just bombarded with all of this stuff constantly. I go through imposter syndrome on the regular. I always have to take breaks. I personally feel like it's just and then you have the algorithm. So like if you're posting something on your social media that you created and it only gets 15 likes, but somebody posts a reel of like AI generated space stuff and it gets 15,000 likes, there's really not much you can even do about that. That it's all about the algorithm. So I think it is like, I think it's important for everybody to just like try not to let it consume you and run your life and run the way you create art. Just keep creating what you want to create, and whether it gets noticed or not, it's your choice to share it, but like you can't rely on social media and the internet to like give you the praise that you deserve as an artist, because it's what they want to share that's going to blow up, really. Or unless you have a following of people who really like enjoy your specific style of art, like that might be different. But this is like we talk about this a lot on Twitter Spaces. It's just like how the algorithm just screws a lot of people over, and it's starting to get to them mentally. Um, so I really don't know. I don't think I'm the only one that feels that way.
Yeah. I mean, Ben and I, frankly, have had, geez, Ben, I don't know, a million discussions about our relationships with Instagram and TikTok and social media. And at the end of the day, like you said, you end up catering your craft and your skills to to an algorithm that's going to decide whether a 3 second video, 6 second video, 7 second video is going to be pushed out to people beyond your initial audience. And Ben, we've talked about this a lot. How's your relationship sort of matured over the last, year or so with social media and the sharing of your work?
I've taken a big step back into how often I post. I'm not as needy to post every day because the ROI is not there. One, and Ciara, I agree, it becomes a mental health epidemic when you are focused on pleasing the masses. I know I listened to a really good interview with Rick Rubin recently. He was on 60 Minutes and he said something along the lines of people don't know what they want, don't do what people say because they have no fucking clue. And if you do that, all you're doing is chasing the money or the clout or the dopamine. And a real artist, why we're artists, and that's in our title, is because we inherently follow intuition and whatever divine um, thought or feeling we get. And that is the power that we will always have over machines until they become sentient. Then we're totally screwed. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's the real thing. And it's funny because I went on a trip for 2 weeks and I actually ghosted Instagram. And because of this, I have one video that has over 100,000 views because the algorithm got worried I wasn't on it for
Oh,
4 days,
wow.
totally cold. And it took one video, and I'm still getting likes from it. I've gotten like 300 followers in over a month. I've gotten like this video almost has 10,000 likes. So I'm kind of understanding, just like people, if you are absent and you don't show the attention to the algorithm, it actually kind of panics because it's a machine, it's a cog in the wheel, and you're the cog and you're feeding it. So
I'm
that's a
curious,
takeaway recently I've had.
Ben, I'm curious from like a dopamine perspective and like how that
I love
success.
dopamine. I'm a big dopamine fan.
I'm curious from like
Do you
a
buy
Come on,
no, I'm curious
I'm always
because
trying to get it.
no, I'm curious because like whenever I have that sort of positive feedback from something that I share, it makes me want to post more, it makes me want to share more. But it sounds like you've been able to sort of compartmentalize that successful piece of work that you put out. What is that sort of has that transformed your desire to create more, push more stuff out there? Has that impacted you at all?
I'm just doing the projects. I'm doing the paintings and commissions that I need to do, and I'll still record myself, and I'm dropping a bunch of things for Valentine's Day later today. But it's just a life change and just being more satisfied from within, and not trying to make others like me. And that's just it. It goes across the board
Yeah.
for
And
people, relationships, and technology.
What was that,
I
Sarah?
read this quote that you're not a content creator, you're an artist.
Mm.
And that is something like I remind myself every day because some of my favorite things that I've made, if I post on Instagram, gets the least amount of likes. And then something I make that I know it will be trending, blows up. So it is what it is. It's annoying as fuck. So
Kalina, what is
sorry.
I agree. No, say all the fucks, please. Kalina, what is your relationship like currently with social media and the internet?
love and hate for sure, but I don't know what Ben was doing because when I disappear for 4 days, the algorithm doesn't care about me. He must be
It's a
special.
numbers game.
Honestly, it's fun. I think social media is fun. It's a way, for those of us who are watching or listening who, were writing letters in order to stay in touch with people from another city or another country back in the day. I mean, it's amazing how much you can feel connected, but it's also amazing how disconnected this can make you because it gives you like sometimes this false feeling of connectivity. So for me, social media, I like to browse. It will suck me in. And next thing you know, 2 hours have gone by and I have watched a bunch of stuff, none of which really like maybe sticks to me in a meaningful way. Um, and then, the posting is the posting, like I would like to, but this is what I actually am. It's a little bit too much to say I'm working on it, but it's really like in my thoughts right now, in my brains, having to pose, having to think, really just takes too much time. And I don't have enough time. I have kids, I have a job, I want to be an artist, I have so many things that interest me. So I have some ideas, put something up, create a live stream. I got nothing to hide. I mean, if somebody catches me when I'm picking my nose, oh, well, you just like locked out. But I thought it would be interesting and also so much more fitting with getting into the vibe, into the space of an artist, to look at the process, right? Something that just runs 24/7. You come in as you please, and if I'm there, you can see what I'm doing. I think that's interesting, right? And it's almost like a project within itself. Then I don't have to worry about, you want to see me, you want to know what I'm doing, here it is.
That's cool. I actually like that a
I
lot.
might do that. I'll let you know when I do that.
Yeah. Oh, that's
That's
cool.
well, that's a smart idea, Kalina. It's sounds like OnlyFans, but with artwork. I'm not gonna take it there, but it's like the thing that my friend told me. He's like, Ben, you're a good artist and you're funny, but you as a funny artist, he's like, you're one of the best I know. And it really doubles down on like find your niche, like we've been talking about, because if you put things together, that's who you are, Kalina, right? And that's who you are, John and Ciara and myself. So like add it up because we have these things, and individually we're not going to be the best, but all together, I'm the best. I'm the funniest, best artist you might know. I don't know.
Yeah.
And oh wait, I'm actually the strongest artist. I'm going to go for that title,
Okay.
the world's strongest fine artist. Hmm.
Okay.
You're the best Ben that I met today.
Look at that, already number one. There you go.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I
Love it.
have recently, I think because I've grown into a level of comfort in my skills as a photographer, I've been a little bit more passionate and follow through on like my desire to share my work on social media. I don't put much stock in likes, shares, views, etc. anymore. To me, it's I want to just create and get an opportunity to share the stuff that I create has been fulfilling for me, at least so far in 2023. It's only a month in. But I'm inspired by putting my work out there, and I don't necessarily care how many people see it, how many people digest it, how many people like it, whether it's 5 or 500. I'm just enjoying, for the first time in a very long time, the process of sharing my work. And I think that comes from I'm not feeling any sense of imposter syndrome lately. I'm feeling very comfortable and grounded in who I am as a photographer, as a creator, that I don't find it inhibiting in my creative flow at all. That is obviously subject to change and likely will change. But the last question that
One
we
thing
have,
I wanted to
what's that?
I wanted to add one thing. What social media actually is very good at, if you remove the masses that are watching, is it documents your life and your
Hmm.
process and the things that you do. So it's almost like flipping, like going back, it's almost like flipping through an album, right? And that's really nice. And it just happens naturally and organically, and you don't have to sit there for 20 hours doing it. It just does it.
You know, Kalina, it's very interesting that you brought up that point because it's one of the reasons why I shoot a lot of film. Because, like any rational 37-year-old person, I'm constantly thinking about my death. And when I leave, what, and what, no, but
But
in
then,
all
yeah.
honesty, and what I leave behind, because at the end of the day, if most of the photography work that I create is digital, when I'm gone, it's going to live on a hard drive for some indeterminate amount of time, and it's going to inevitably end up in a landfill. And that's sort of why I've started shooting so much more film lately, because I'm going to leave behind a physical catalog of what I did, right? It's not going to be in the cloud. It's not going to be on a hard drive. It's not going to be on a phone that's going to disappear when I'm not here. It's going to exist somewhere. Like, listen, will it end up in my, if I have lucky enough to have kids, their garage? Sure, probably. But who knows? I mean, I tell the story all the time of Vivian Meyer, who is a very, very talented street photographer whose work was lost for decades and decades because she never shared any of it. And then boom, it ended up in a, you know, fucking storage unit. Some guy found it, bought it, and then the rest is history. But like, I like the idea that there will be a physical sort of representation of my work far beyond however long I last. But I digress. We have a lot of questions left with the chat GPT. I wanted to kind of just skip to the end. I think we've sort of touched upon everything, but what the last question that the AI platform had for us was, where do you see the future of art over the next decade, and how will it be different from what we see today? Um, I'd like to start with you, Ciara. What do you think?
Uh, the future of art. Uh, I mean, I think like we've already touched on in the chat is that art has changed so much from, the ancient greats. I think this is such a tough question. Can I answer it where I would like to see it go?
Yes. Yeah, please.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm not a fortune teller. I don't know where art is gonna go. I think art should be exactly as it's been, in the sense that it's well-rounded, like that there's not just one. I don't want to see art be completely digitized. Like that actually freaks me out. I love going to a museum and or walking through, like, the ruins of like an ancient city. Like that brings me joy. And I think a lot of people can agree that we need those parts of the art world to stay alive. So I'd like to, just because it's interesting, I'd like to see where the digital realm of art can go, and like what boundaries we can push, and like how, who knows, with you mentioned Ready Player Me before, like if that's if that is our destiny, like I kind of would like to see it. But I think keeping traditional artists, photographers, people that make things with their hands around is so important. My mom she is a ceramics maker, and she's a physical artist. And like I said, like I've always made things by hand, and that's, I mean, who knows? Like maybe after this conversation, like I'm gonna go draw a picture because I feel like I need to get that out.
But back.
Right? Like, or bake a cake. I don't know. But I think I personally would like it to just be a well-rounded mix of everything. That way, everyone can release their creative expression. I mean, there are people with disabilities who can't physically draw, who are using AI as a way to be creative and get out their emotions, and I do respect that. So, um, let's just say a well-rounded mix. That's very vague, but
Yeah.
it's
No, I appreciate that.
true.
Kalina, what do you think?
I like the idea of a well-rounded mix, and I think that's nice. There's something for everyone. Um, if I were to say, I don't think the art world is going to change so much in 10 years. So I'm glad you didn't ask 50 or 100, because I would be just as stumped as Ciara. Um, but I do feel like there's a direction towards immersive experience, and also um, beyond the sort of decorative nature of art for as beauty as an object of aesthetics, meaning is certainly something that people are going after. So I think in probably just in terms of its expression, I see more and more influx of things that don't look traditionally like a canvas or a quilt, and interactivity with the space, and cultural trends and discussion, current events, that sort of thing.
Yeah. No, I spent some time with the was it called, the Star Night exhibit. Went to the Pantone one, the blue at Art Tech House. I forgot what it's called. I like those ideas, those concepts for like immersive sort of art experiences. Ben, final word on the future of art.
Future of art is Ben Rizzo. How about that? I think that I'm being serious, by the way.
Yeah, no,
The
we know.
future of art, I agree with. Look, come on. I agree with the more meaning and more connection, Kalina. I totally agree with that. I think that it's going to be more inclusive for the average user, but it's still elite as you go up. Art and fine art is extremely elitist. It's not as accessible as music, right? Or dancing or eating. We do these things every day, but the fine art market is so niche. And if you look at who's buying it and the amount of like money that people are spending for the top artists, it's millions and millions of dollars, and it's a whole interesting thing to learn about within itself. But in my experience, because how chaotic the world is, the future of art should be calm and simple. And I think it will be blending of styles, which it already is. But the average user wants to be put at ease and have things in their house that are more subdued so they can relax and not feel bombarded in an already chaotic world. Enter Ben Rizzo into the picture to provide you with calming, therapeutic, one of a kind artwork for all occasions, indoor and outdoor.
No, like
I would
I'm
like
with you.
to take the time.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think we should. My hope is that I can start incorporating these sort of roundtable discussions into future conversations, and whether they're centered around art, whether they're centered around politics, music, whatever. I'd like the idea of bringing on multiple people having discussions and getting to the bottom of some topic, whether it is art, whether it is whatever. In this particular case, obviously, we put this together in a very short period of time. Getting user submitted questions would have been nice, but I thought it was sort of tongue in cheek to have a
Yeah.
AI generated questionnaire. Although I didn't love the questions, I thought they led to some interesting conversations and debates.
Well, it's just showing the lack of creativity that AI has.
There you
So
go.
there you go.
Yeah.
AI is nothing without human touch, you see.
Yeah. It is interesting. I like I love a lot of what you've created, Sarah. I think you have like this really cool style from a digital art perspective, and I love what Kalina and Ben do physically in the art world as well. I do have a slight aversion to AI art, and when you look at, like, you can go onto Dolly and create a photograph that looks like a Joel Meyerowitz's, and you can like create all of the particulars for the scene, and it generates a photograph that is AI generated and fake but looks fucking real. That's not art to me. That's sort of, it's not stealing. I don't know what it is. I know, who am I to decide what it is? Who am I to distinguish whether it's a good or a bad thing? But it just doesn't sit right with me personally.
Yeah, it was
I think
funny. There
that's a,
was I was reading an article, and basically some sort of very fancy art competition with money prizes, and somebody submitted it was an AI generated piece, which he did not hide, but I don't know if those people overlooked or what the story was. And he ended up being the winner of the thing. And if you look at it, it really looks like a real old style, sort of realistic, yet with some sort of sci-fi moments, like oil painting or something like that. It's so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of that. So I feel like it's a little bit like when if somebody asks, you look at an artist who does drawing or painting, let's say, and they have this work that looks as if a kid could draw it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are they, painting or drawing like that because they just cannot do it otherwise, Or is it because after years of training and exploration, you are drawn towards simplicity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, people who don't have those abilities, I think there is a value in them having something that they can pick up and explore with, because but maybe that's where it gets tricky. Like, who's an artist, what's an artist, how
Mm-hmm.
much of an artist are you? Am I an artist because I have another job? Can I say I'm like 100% an artist? I don't know. Some people
Yeah.
might say yes, some people don't.
I'm with you.
So
I mean, for a long time, I struggled with whether I can consider calling myself a photographer, because all I was doing at the time was creating, like Ben uses the term fine art for the work that he creates from an art perspective. I was using it to describe the photographs I was taking because I wasn't getting paid to make them. I was creating them solely on my own. So I was considering myself a fine art photographer, but like, am I a fine art photographer if no one's buying my prints, if no one's buying my photographs? No, not really. I think that's sort of that imposter syndrome mentality where, like, you are the thing that you are if you are doing the thing that it is, right? Like, are you a baker if you don't own a bakery? Well, I make fucking bomb cinnamon buns. I think that makes me a baker, right? So it's like sort of that same sort.
it's like the best way forward is using common sense.
which means
Now, do
which
I
means
have
we're
the best
fucked.
common sense? Do you have the best common sense? That's subjective.
Yeah,
But common sense is a little bit dead, and it kind of kills me
you could say that again.
I'd be
sometimes.
interested. I know that a lot of AI things are winning awards and like are out painting people. And if you don't know, then it's like, oh, like this is great. I wonder who did this. But if you were to put a value on it, I would be almost certain that someone buying it would spend, let's say, $10,000, Kalina, to buy your art and your painting.
Ooh,
But I would
galing.
not spend $10,000. I know I just put you up, but I would not spend $10,000 on an AI generated thing. And that's just my interpretation. I'd be curious what the research is and what the perception is, because I think that's where it's different. And I don't feel nervous because I know any day of the week, if you take someone who's on Dolly or Procreate or doing these like things for fun, like I know I'm a better artist than you. So I just want to help to have you use it in a way that's
Well, I
like
think there's
therapeutic, right?
there
And
there needs to be
enriching.
sorry to interrupt you. I think there needs to be a distinction between AI generated art and digital art, because like you can be a Procreate or Illustrator artist, and I would consider someone who creates, whether it's on paper or on an iPad, you're an artist. If you're drawing the thing and creating the thing, not like typing in a phrase to a fucking computer to develop it. I
Right.
think if you're
It's a good
creating,
distinction.
yeah, I think that's important, because like to me, I think there's a million things that are, you know, digitally created pieces of art that don't exist in the physical world. I mean, look at any, Rick and Morty, any of those shows, those are all designed on computers, right? Any Disney Pixar movie, like those things are not created in the physical world, but they're art,
Yeah.
I think, at least, maybe. I don't know. I love Pixar.
Wrong.
Yeah. No, it's a good point.
Yeah.
Kind of
Um
why I've been like mixing my photography with like my digital art lately, because I can't understand someone like selling a image straight out of like a prompt to image to selling that without any type of like manipulation. Like I can't wrap my head around that. And when I do use like AI in my art, it's always like it's an addition to something. Like it's not, I can't personally, because that's why I feel like I can have this conversation with you guys as traditional artists, because like I am not on like the like super like AI team, like let's just
yeah.
go. Like I use it, but I do like respect like where you guys come from
But
so
also,
much in my heart.
I find this stuff that you create to be wildly unique, and it's a lot of times stuff that cannot exist in physical art, right? You can't make like, I'm thinking of like, I don't know, like you had space and shit moving in the background of what was clearly a photograph that you manipulated to like make look, what I'm talking about is like some crazy shit that you did. It was like, it's like a GIF. I don't know what you would call it, but you know what I'm saying, right? Like
I'm thinking, if anything, the AI art is the art of writing before it's the art of painting.
No, I agree. That would be the art of storytelling versus
Yeah.
the process of like creating. And I think that distinction between like digital art creation, whether it's in Illustrator, Procreate, etc., and AI generative art, which is not, in my opinion, who the fuck am I? I don't know. It's hard to say. I think it's storytelling. You can paint a picture with words better than you could create it. I do, like Ciara said earlier, she mentioned that it's like becoming an inclusive aspect for people who maybe physically cannot do it to be able to have the means to create art. I think that's fucking awesome. I just have a hard time of distinguishing where that type of art should have its place in the art world. But because who the fuck cares what I think?
Yeah, someone's going to come along and sell $1 million AI generated art. Everyone's going to be mad. Someone took a banana
They are
and put
selling.
it on the wall.
Happened.
So
I
There's
really
yeah,
the-
okay, there you go. So there you go. Like I
that's
don't.
the novelty of it. I think, it's like you own something that's new, right? And you can afford to
Right.
have a piece of history the way you have the Moses' tablets. Somebody has it if they're not in a museum, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in that aspect, but yeah, to put it all over your house, I don't know if I'm sure there are those people as well. And
Yeah.
good riddance.
the idea that like we're on screens constantly between our phones, our computers, our iPads, like even when you walk down the street, like it's just like screens and like digital brain waves, electromagnetic, who the hell knows what it's doing to us. There's something so great about having like a physical piece of art. Like my house is like I have art everywhere. I mean, I have art
Same.
here, but I want to get away from screens so much. Like so I just say, keep doing it, keep going, like cuz I don't think that will ever be a thing. I think nobody wants to stare at a screen on their wall when they've been on their phone all day working. Like,
I
you know what
completely
I mean?
agree. Yes, I
I feel like
completely
our
agree.
kids might. I don't know. My kids might.
Yeah, you never know. Who knows what
Yeah,
the
for real.
metaverse is going to look like in a few years, and like
Yeah.
what that, it's could be completely different. But I agree with you. Like, and that's why I have those very strong feelings about the physical connection to art because we exist in a physical plane, and until my consciousness is uploaded to the cloud somewhere, I want to appreciate art and photography and music in real life.
I think we're all getting back to why we started doing this, and that's the takeaway I'm having is we all got into this for a reason, and AI art and all this stuff digitally is exposing it to this like phony, shallow thing. But for me, I started doing this because I love it and it brings me joy. And it's the best thing I can do with my time that makes me feel the most amazing out of everything in the world. And that will never go away.
Yeah,
And when you come at it from that, I think you always come out net positive in a zero sum life and world because, like, I don't care what's happening because, again, why I do this is not for any of those things. No market, no trends will ever have the internal feelings I have, and I'm sure all of you feel the way in your own, modes of expression. So that's the biggest takeaway from actually this conversation on like how I fit into this. Is like, who cares? I do it because I love it, and I get paid to do it, and that alone is insane. And I will forever be grateful and blessed. And yeah, that's
okay,
it.
sure. I will say, regardless of what the future holds for art, I think the
Sean's
just
like, yeah, okay, buddy.
no, no, I mean, obviously, there's a reason why I'm saving up all of my hard-earned extra dollars so I could buy a Ben Rizzo original. I know there's just very little doubt that very funny and/or strongest artist on earth is my neighbor. So obviously, it's gotta happen. I will say that,
And not or. And sorry, not or. You said
and
and or. It's
yeah,
and.
okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I will say the best thing that's come out of sort of the digital space from an art perspective is the people that you meet along the way. I think anytime you get an opportunity to have a thoughtful debate and discussion about anything, whether it's art, music, etc., anytime you're able to link with people who have these sort of creative life aspirations as you all do. I feel very lucky to be able to be in your presence and be able to digest all of the amazing things that you guys do. Thank you so much for coming on today's podcast. I really appreciate it. I think we touched on some really cool stuff. I hope this is something that we do again in the future. And yeah, thank you guys so much for coming on. It was my absolute pleasure.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.